Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Simple Living High Thinking, and I'm joined once again by Varangi Radha Devi Dasi and Tadeo Souza. And we are unpacking the Bhagavad Gita class of Tukaram Prabhu every Friday night at the Laguna Beach Temple. And we're in the middle of chapter 3, text 35. So we didn't cover a lot of text last night, but I really loved last night's class so much, just the time he took to unpack doing your duty and going inward. And so I just wanted to open it up to what you guys thought and what you want to talk about today.
Yeah, I think it would be a great time if you guys agreed to do a little small recap, maybe not so much into detail, but just to kind of remind our audience how we got here.
Yeah, go for it.
Souza would like to, do you want to do a little recap for us?
You can go for it.
Okay. Okay, so once again, the Bhagavad Gita takes place in the middle of a battlefield, and Arjuna is our protagonist. He found himself in a war against his family members. And so this war was actually really really intense moral dilemma, because Arjuna had to decide if he was going to pick his family, everything he loved, or save the world. So it was the fate of the world or his family. And obviously that's probably something that none of us will ever have to go through. So this text is actually based on this really difficult time and existential crisis of the soul, who is represented by Arjuna. And so we can all learn a lot from this, definitely. So yeah, Arjuna finds himself in a really difficult situation. He doesn't know which way is up. He doesn't know what the right thing to do is. He does have a lot of really good arguments for why he shouldn't fight. At this point, he takes shelter of Krishna, and Krishna then steps in and gives him a little bit of knowledge. And the first, I guess, morsel, because there's so much that's coming our way throughout the Gita, but the first morsel of knowledge, which is so fundamental for spirituality, is that you're not the body. We are not the body, that Arjuna isn't his body. And the consequence of that knowledge is that Arjuna, and hence all of us, should do our duty, but not be attached to the result. And so what happens next is that Arjuna doesn't quite get it. He can't wrap his head around this piece of information. And this is the third chapter. And so Arjuna, expresses his confusion and asks Krishna to be a little more clear. And so Krishna takes it down a notch and then says, okay, you're not ready to do your duty and not be attached to the result, then at least stay attached, but remain doing your duty. And by doing your duty, you're eventually connecting yourself to something higher than yourself. And this duty doing your duty, even when you don't want to do it, or even when it doesn't feel good, it will help you transcend the clutches of materialism, because you're no longer a slave to the external, to that result, to I guess things that you really have no control over. And so you're able to dive deeper and to do the right thing simply because it's the right thing. And at that point, Krishna then goes through a series of examples of somebody that has progressed in this journey and has achieved, I guess, a platform of transcendence, and what that person speaks like and acts like, and how at a certain point that person continues to do his duty, but not anymore for his own benefit, but to set an example for other people, and what that looks like, and how this person can actually be a beacon of light a nice guide to those other people that are coming after him or her that are not at the same level, and how this person, by seeing clearly through the eyes of yoga and transcendence, he or she can engage other people in the same process and help them make progress towards this biggest yes. And last night, this brings us to last night's verse, which was chapter 3, verse 35. And I'll just read it and then we'll go from there. So Krishna here is saying to Arjuna, it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. So that's where we're at today. Did I miss anything, or would you like to add anything else to that recap?
No, that was such a wonderful summary. Thank you, Varangi. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Varangi. I think it was complete.
Great.
Yeah, what struck me about the verse itself was the power of, like, these are strong words, you know, destruction in the course of performing your own duty is better. I thought, whoa, that leaves a lot of leeway for, you know, as long as you stick to your duty, you're still doing the right thing. And then also for to follow another's path is dangerous. It's like, these are really strong words. So.
I can relate to that.
When I first started Krishna consciousness, my main topic at that time was free will. I kind of knew, I thought I knew about free will and how it relates to us existing and God existing as well. And my main trouble at that point was, if God is omniscient, he already knows everything. So then how can I have free will? Because whatever I do, God already knows I'm going to do that. So it's a predeterministic reality rather than one where I live with free will. So I was really bewildered by this point, and that was the questions that I kept on asking, like week 1, week 2, week 3, as my family and I were coming to the temple. As soon as I got complete with free will, through the gracious explanations of the devotees of the temple, this was the verse that troubled me the most. And I had to sit with it for quite some time, because like you said, Kim, there's a lot of room for interpretation here. When we say it is better to discharge one's prescribed duty, even if we meet with destruction, that means that we are doing our duty in such a bad way that we are dying from it. Like if we replace the word destruction, because that's what it means. Like if you're being destructed, you're doing your duty and you're so bad that you're going to die. Like, I don't know, like I think like a semi-easy example that comes to my mind is if you're a car racer, right? And you're really bad at it. And then you go in a kart race and then maybe you don't know how to drive, and then you hit the wall and you die, right? Well, it just begs a reflection. If I am so bad at this duty that I'm going to die performing it, isn't it better that I stop and do something else? And furthermore, I'm going to be doing somebody else's duties perfectly. There is, in this text, doesn't include that. Varangi, I think have you heard this same text, but it says that it is better to meet with destructions doing your own duty than to perform another man's duties perfectly?
Perfectly, yeah.
The word perfectly is that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In this one?
Then another's duties perfectly.
Yes, that's right. So, and that's the other side, right? But then if I stop doing the thing that I'm so bad at, that is going to cause my destruction, but then I do another man's duty and I do that thing perfectly, then isn't that my duty? Because I'm doing it perfectly. Then maybe I should stop doing the thing that I'm doing to do that other thing. So this is like a very bewildering verse. I mean, I think it still is. Like, we can continue to problematize it and understand how tricky it is. And obviously, Tukaram Prabhu took us in a journey yesterday that kind of unveiled and unpacked all of this. So I'll begin describing how we can troubleshoot it. And
by the way, you did an amazing job problematizing it. It's like, wow, yeah, how are we gonna get out of this one?
Right, and I guess that's another way in which we benefit from being Tukaram's students, because that's his style, right? To really present the problem in there, so that one causes us to start really thinking, and then two, when we get the answer, is more difficult to forget, because we really understand how problematic that problem of this verse is. And so there's so many ways to discuss this. I really like this topic because I think so pragmatic with what I consider to be a social issue of today, which is that we have one of the pillars of our economy is the student debt loan. Like in 2008, I believe, when our economy crashed, was due to the real estate market. And at that point, I was doing some research and understanding how is it possible that something can destabilize the economy of the entire world? Like, what is our economy resting on, you know? And one of the major things that our economy rests on is the incredible amount of student loans. So these are students that are taking a tremendous amount of money to go to school, and then you have to repay. I think even Barack Obama, they were joking that up to the point that he was elected president, him and Michelle both still had student loans to pay back, which is crazy, you know? So I say that is one of the pillars, because if all that money was not to be put back into the economy, it could potentially crash the economy, you know? How is this relevant? Why am I talking about this right now? Because even though that is the picture, there is so much student loan, that which means people are going to school. A lot of people are going to school, taking so much money to go to school. And their debts are it's an incredible amount. And statistically speaking, about 70% of all people do not work in the field that they study, which means there's a lot of confusion there in terms of what is my duty? What do I do? What are my obligations here? If I'm going to school, I'm spending so much money, but then there's a 70% chance I'm not even going to utilize the skills I acquire in the university. To me, it highlights the social problem I brought up, that people are super confused as to what they want to do, what they should do. and it reflects in these statistics, right? So you give people, they're starting one job, and you stay there for 2-3 years, and then you move to another job, and then you move to another job, and you start one career, one course of studies in college, and then you go to another one, or you married, and then you get divorced, and then you marry somebody. So that's the social problem I'm talking about. We don't know how to commit. We don't know how to honor. We don't know how to start first of all, identify something as valuable, and then stick to it, honor it, and do it, you know? So, and that's how Tukaram was beginning to troubleshoot this problem. This verse speaks to that quality of commitment. It is your duty. Like, say you already know what your duty is, which I think will go to what you and I were discussing after class, Varangi, in terms of like, what is my duty to begin with, right? But let's say we jump ahead and you understand what your duty is. Then you're not doing it well. You're wanting the result, like Varangi just captured in our summary. Step number 1 in spiritual life is we are not the body, with this eternal spiritual soul. So then do your duty and don't be engaged and don't be attached to the results. Well, but what if the results are not good for quite some time? Then it's so easy for us to just change our minds and do something else and jump to something else. And in that way, we never really learn how to develop the quality of commitment, to honor what it is that I said. I'm going to honor my vows and stick to it, even though it is not giving you the results that you aspire for. The greatest example, I think once at one point, perhaps we all heard of it, is Thomas Edison, who for hundreds of times failed in trying to create the light bulb. You know, so then people like him, if he was to give up on his mission, then how much longer would it take for us to then arrive at something like a light bulb? And Elon Musk with the SpaceX, I'll briefly introduce this if you guys don't know. He was a billionaire, created the first rocket. His idea is that, well, I'm going to launch a rocket to space and then it's going to come back, because by coming back, we can spend just 1 or 2 millions and repurpose the rocket so it can fly again. But the rocket itself costs, over $100 million. So every time that a rocket flies out, then you lost all that money. But if you can bring it back, spend 1 or 2 millions, repurpose and fly again, the economics work out much better. So he wants to commercialize, space travel. So sent out the first rock with the intention that the rocket was going to come back. Well, on the way up, the rocket blew up, right? So all money is gone. Second time, he went around, gathered money from a lot of friends and so on, and try again. Okay, try again, boom, rock blows up again. Third time, he's like, okay, look, if this doesn't work, I'll lose everything I have. He bet everything he had. He even goes to Russia, asks Russians for money. Russians look straight on his face and say, hey, little foolish boy, you have dreams that are too far out. We don't have time for this nonsense. Go back to America. Essentially laughed at him. So then he puts all resources, everything, and then trying one more time. And then the third time, not only the rocket goes up, but he comes back. Hence what we have here now was NASA contracting him to fly things out to space, But the thing is, you don't stop. Even when the results that you're expecting, you're not achieving, even if it's like, in his case, billions of dollars that you're losing, but you stick to it. There's beauty there. There's beauty when you stick to something and you go to the end and you put in the austerities, the sacrifices that are necessary. You become great. It's the only way to become great at anything. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, they talked about it all the time. I failed so many times, but we never give up. We come back and we honor our commitments and we stick to it, and then we become great. So a big part of what Tukaram was teaching us yesterday was this concept, right, of honoring and sticking to it. So that is the beginning of troubleshooting this verse, because we can see that as soon as what I'm doing, my duty, the thing that I'm working on, it starts to go in the wrong way, I quit. Then that becomes my personality. It becomes who I am. I quit. When things get tough, I quit. I go do something else. And that can reflect in such a weakness of mind that impact us in so many levels of our existence, our family, our jobs, even our friends, commitment to our friends, etc. So that is the antidote, right? To honor our commitment, stick to it. So that's how we're beginning to troubleshoot this verse. So what do you guys have to add at this point?
Something that I wanted to bring up regarding, thank you, by the way, that was really helpful and meaningful, especially all the different examples. One of the things that I thought of that Tukaram did bring up during class was the fact that when we continue with this mindset of, well, this didn't work out, or this is too hard, or it doesn't feel good, then I'm going to change something. That translates into other spheres, like you mentioned. And it really, I think, something that everybody could relate to is changing our external situation in hopes that we are going to feel better inside. So trying to look for a material solution to a spiritual problem. So to fill that void. So it's like, oh, I'm just unhappy with this. This is too hard. People are mean. It's too much money, too much endeavor, whatever your list of excuses is. Let me change jobs. And then you go from job to job to job looking for that perfect one. But like you said, I think that what's rotten is really the mentality. So wherever we go, Tukaram says this a lot, there you are. Wherever you go, there you are. So you're the problem. And it stops being that way the moment that you start cleaning up your own act, your internals. And so the alternative to this issue, or not the alternative, but a different perspective for this issue is, well, if we are grounding ourselves to something higher than ourselves, that's doing our duty, material or spiritual. And I know we're going to talk about that wonderful explanation that Tukram gave about this verse on Friday. Oh yes, either material or spiritual. You're doing that duty, and you're really just training your mind to be committed to doing that thing, regardless of what it comes out to be. And something that I think it's really relevant, at least for me, but definitely for the three of us, is, for example, this podcast. We started it because we realized that it's really important for us to talk about Krishna and these topics and philosophy. And we have seen how powerful the study of these texts are in our own lives. And so we decided to do this project. And it's so easy to get discouraged. If we were looking at the numbers, if we're seeing, okay, let's see how many people are logging on, how many people are listening to us, how many people are sharing, it's hard for the mind. Like, okay, we're putting this much effort. Is it worth it? And so, at least for me, I'm very, my mind is very trained to look at the results and then be like, okay, yes, I'm getting this much out of it. Okay, it's worth it. Oh, I'm not getting as much as I expected, then maybe it's not so worth it. So when we're listening to this topic, at least for me, it was like, wow, I'm sticking to this because this is actually what's right, what's the best use of my time. I not only enjoy it, but it's beneficial for myself and for other people. I'm getting spiritual association, and then we're able to share this message with whoever chooses to listen to it, right? And so regardless of looking at the result. And so I thought that point of really sticking to something because it's your duty, it's your responsibility, it's what's right, regardless of how good it feels, if it's easy or not, if you like it or not. Sometimes it really liberates you from that mental, I think, prison of like always being swayed with or going with the ups and downs of life. Like, it's so draining to always being so aware or selling yourself to a certain result, because we don't have full control over that, right? We only have control over ourselves. And so to be able to get to that point where you just do something because that's what you're meant to do. And in Arjuna's case, is Krishna's telling him, you're a Kshatriya, you're a soldier. That's your nature. You're going to do this regardless, whether you like it or you don't. You're going to end up fighting for the wrong reasons if you don't fight for the right reasons. So clean up your internal act. Realize that you're not this body, and this is what you're going to end up doing, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. And so doing things for the right reasons, regardless of what the results are. Like, wow, what an amazing hack to really be liberated, even though we're still in these bodies, even though we're still in the world. It's like at a certain point, you just do your duty. It's just because it's the right thing to do, according to your nature and according to your principles and morals. And you're peaceful because you're doing your best and you're showing up and you're doing your part. But then you understand that everything else that comes after that, it's really out of your control. And so I just wanted to add this point because it really impacted me from yesterday's class. And it helped me understand how meaningful it is to train your mind to be peaceful with what you're doing, especially when that's really directly related to your spiritual practice. And so, yeah, I know we're going to touch on the spiritual side of it in a little bit. So looking forward to that one. Kim, what do you think?
Yeah, those are really nice points. I liked how you phrased it about the external things and just training your mind, like both of you talking about the discipline and choices that we have. A lot of times, maybe the younger generation, not to disparage anyone's age, but I look at my nieces and they think that, if there's a little bit of pain or if there's discomfort, then it's not meant to be. And, I'm not happy in this job. I need to go and be an artist or whatever the case may be. And I had this in my own life where when I moved to California, I thought, I'm not 100% happy in my job. And yeah, it's a great job on paper and I need to do something else. And find my passion. And, it's exactly what you said, Varangi, about looking externally, and like Tukram said, if you feel that, if I change my job, I'm going to change my life, like, that's going to fix everything. And right now, I'm so happy. I'm the happiest I've ever been, so grounded and satisfied. And my job has not changed. And I actually love my job. And I see that Krishna was looking out for me, because if Krishna just followed all of my whims, it's one of the things that I was thinking about in the last day since class, is how we really, sometimes I forget about all of the support and the things that are happening on the back end to keep me from sinking my own ship. Because sometimes we think, I need to get a new job, I need to do this. But really, Krishna's handling it for us, like guiding us in ways that we have no idea, are going on. So.
The wonderful point both of you guys bring. Thanks for your personal example, Kim. It's nice to hear that, I'm the happiest I've ever been now, and I didn't change my job, is the flip side, right? So that's, thank you for sharing that. I actually have so much more to talk about on these points alone, but we want to stay committed to our timeline here. So I thought we would move on to what I believe is an inevitable question, given the fact that we are discussing our duties, is, but then how do I know what my duty is? Right? Like I mentioned earlier, that statistically speaking, it shows that everybody's confused as to what their duty should be after putting so much time, effort, and money into a college, master's, PhD, double master's, double PhD, and then still looking for a job. So it begs the question, what is my duty? So there's so many ways to do this, but obviously we are here studying a Vedic culture, and I think from the Vedic perspective, the best way is to understand we have a nature, first of all, and that nature is essentially divided in 4 different classes. This is not discrimination, right? This is not just say one person, it's born and is stuck in this one thing, this one category, and I'm going to discriminate against that person in that category. This is not that. This is looking at somebody's nature, which is to say the nature of fire is to be hot and to give out heat and light. If it's not giving out heat and light, then it's not fire. It's something else. So it is not that if fire had consciousness and I address the fire and say, you're lacking some humidity, right? You're too dry. It's not that I'm discriminating against fire, but saying, hey, you're not wet as water. I'm just pointing out the fact that the nature of fire is to be hot and give out heat and light. That's the nature. And water is to be wet. If it's not wet, then it's not water. So that's what I mean by our nature. Krishna tells us we are born in these material worlds. And essentially we have 4 different natures, similar to how we look at the horoscope, right? And we have our birth signs, and there's 12 of us in that case. And they say that according to your horoscope, you're going to be one of these 12 categories, and you're going to act and think and feel, and your psychology is going to be constructed in that particular way. So something similar to that. But Krishna's explanation of our nature is elaborating in 4 categories only. So step number 1, I believe, would be to know what your duty is to realize in which of these 4 categories you fall under. Let's call that the general principle. So the general principles are either your nature is of a Brahmana, or a Kshatriya, or a Vaishya, or a Sudra. So we'll describe each one of those quickly. A Brahmana is a person who by nature is really interested in acquiring knowledge. That person likes to study, whether it is any subject, but that person really likes books. And that person has a more calm and detached from the world. Let's say, it's Friday night and I rather go read this new book on my Kindle that I just got, rather than going out to a bar with friends and doing something that is not acquiring knowledge, let's say. That person will by nature be like, no, I just want to, be at home, study, be more cool-minded, a little bit more detached. Those are the qualities, those are the characteristics of a Brahmana. A Vaishya, or let's say a Kshatriya, I'm going to try to go in order here. So then a Kshatriya is a person who is really into justice, let's say. The person wants to make sure that the justice in the material world is going on, that mankind is serving things properly, people are getting what they deserve, and that person is willing to enforce this worldview of justice, even if it requires physical aggression, like fighting. They don't shy away from a fight, like physical fights, even like mixed martial artists and boxers and so on. These people have a very big Kshatriya nature. I don't know if you guys ever seen a UFC fight. It's pretty brutal. I spend a lot of time banging around 7-footers and playing basketball, and it can get rough out there in the basketball court. But when you watch a UFC fight, you got somebody who's trying to kick and they're kicking you on your face. That's not good. And even at 6'8" and being comfortable, engaging in aggressive physicality, as I have been playing basketball, when I watch some fight like that, I'm like, man, I don't know if I would get into a ring and have somebody kick me on my face, somebody who's professionally trained to kick me on my face. It's like, So that kind of show, and some of these UFC fighters, they love it. It's like, oh, this is what I love. That's what I want to do, So that's that Kshatriya nature. The Vaishya is a person who is really into business, making money, like unapologetically making money. Like not necessarily a bad person that's super materialistic, but the person who really has a good skill, like starting one company, starting another company. They're really enthusiastic about making money and managing money. So that's more like a Vaishya nature. And a Sudra nature is that, I'm perhaps a little bit more laid back as well. And I don't want to have to deal with all the intricacies, all the challenges and difficulties that it comes with starting a company or managing people. There's so many different types of people psychology, and to try to understand it all and manage it all is a bit too much for me. And I am really into going into my job, doing an excellent job, doing my duty, and then earning my honest money and coming home and going to sleep with peace of mind and providing for my family and my loved ones. So, and I'm okay. Just go work for a great company, very honorably, make my money, support my family, and I'm okay with that. That's more of a Sudra nature. Varangi, please add to what I just said, to all 4 categories. Even if you were to just repeat what I said, I want to make sure I didn't miss out on any one important aspect of these 4 categories, because I know this question is an important one. What is my duty, especially for our audience that we are targeting newcomers, right? So from your point of view, did I miss anything important for in these 4 categories?
No, I think that your description of these 4 categories and the types of people that fit in was very complete. And it's really amazing, like if we think about it, how like the Gita nailed this thousands of years ago. And it's like, yes, nobody's like outside of those 4 categories. It's so brilliant. So yeah, Brahmanas are usually like in today's society, like the priests or people that are really inclined to study, and they're really drawn by knowledge, but also by spirituality, and they're really like in the mode of goodness. And they're usually like clean people. They like to be quiet. They don't really engage in like the trends of the world. They like to study. They're into academia. A lot of their professors and philosophers, things like that. In the Kshatriya order, we can think of the military, soldiers, police officers, firefighters, people that are always drawn to service, but from an authority perspective. So they're out to serve people, but not in menial service like the Shudras do, but in terms of protecting the community or a society, and also laying down the law and like making sure people are following that. And yeah, they're not afraid to use force or violence if that's needed in order to keep the peace. And then we have the Vaishyas that are merchants, like you said, restaurant owners, people that sell stuff, and people that are, today all the YouTubers and influencers and all that stuff. It's a way to sell their image and brand and be able to make money from it. So any person that's really drawn and that's like their nature, they find it fulfilling to make money and figure out new ways to be their own boss, to not have to clock in or out or answer to anybody, but in a way, create their jobs, their way to make a living on their own. And the Shudras, which is pretty much like, I would say it's like the biggest category. They're just servants. And I don't mean to say just in terms of like they're low and they don't deserve as much respect. They're actually just, their nature is to provide services to the other three classes or groups in society, and that comes very natural to them. They feel really an anxiety when they have to come up with new ways to make money, and they don't really, it doesn't come natural. They also find it difficult to be managers and to protect other people and to study. They're not really drawn to that. So what comes natural is to offer some service and to be able to, like you said, receive a paycheck, and it's like a steady, and they know what's coming and they know how much they're going to get, and that gives them a sense of peace and tranquility. And in this way they're able to engage and be a very important part of society, but in a different way. So we see that in all these 4 classes, everybody's satisfied and in what they're doing and how they all ultimately serve each other. It's not like these classes are independent. So they all are interrelated. They all need each other in order for society to be sustainable and to be successful. And so I'm really glad you're bringing this up, because it really points to the fact that each one of us, we're so unique and we have so much to offer. But it's not a question of if you're high class or low class, or you're better than or worse than somebody else. It's really understanding that we're all part of something bigger. And when we are focusing on our duties that go hand in hand with our nature, we're going to be more peaceful in that way. And we're going to be able to actually become satisfied. But not only that, personally, our society also benefits from that harmony when we find that everybody's doing what it's according to their own nature, but also what's necessary for society to advance. And so, yeah, please continue. I'm eager to hear how you're going to tie this.
Yeah, thank you for complimenting what I said. You did bring up a few things that I didn't, that were important. And yeah, this topic is very dear to me, to us, of course, because I think it's a great help for people that are asking themselves, what do I do? And even statistically, we already know that is the case. So I like to call these 4 categories, these 4 classes, the general principle. And we should understand, we should be able to be introspective and ask ourselves to which one of these categories I feel I belong the most. What is my nature? One should know oneself and understand I'm more of a Kshatriya than I am of a Sudra, or vice versa. And what Krishna is saying here in this verse 35 is that if you are a Sudra, if that's really your nature, don't be seduced by the idea of having your own business. I'm going to be my own boss, and nobody's going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to create my own hours. I can tell from personal experience that is not what's going to keep you successful at having your own job. That is not a good enough reason to have your own business, because it's too difficult to start a company, manage people, compete against your competitors, which are already there doing whatever it is you're trying to do. is very, very difficult. And to think, oh, I just want to be my own boss is not sustainable in the long run. You're going to quit. But that is the seduction, you know, it sounds so sexy. Oh, I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to punch my own hours, blah, blah, blah. Don't be seduced by that idea is what Krishna is saying in this verse. Do your own duty. Be who you are. Be in your class. And from that, peace will come. Don't try to look for these exterior ways of changing your internal state, right? Or if you are a Brahmana, and if your thing is to study and to be more laid back, and if you see some aggression going on the streets, don't go try to fight yourself. You're just going to get beat up. You know, call another Kshatriya. Call the cops. If there's somebody around you who is of that nature, and have them go handle the situation. So stick in your own path, you know, and if you are a merchant, no, go make money. You start a bunch of businesses and make a lot of money, and then using Krishna service, you know, but don't go try to serve somebody else that because, you know, you have this talent, use it, start business, manage people, help the people that are working for you, help them, you know, and don't try to go take a job and clock in from 8 to 5. It is not the best usage of your intelligence, you know. So then just that, so that being the general principle, then there's the specific instance, and we are going to be a specific instance of these general principles, which is these 4 classes. So what is your duty? Find your class, and within that class, now there's your specific instance. So let's say that my class is to be a Sudra, and now I know that. Right? We did this exercise. Now I know this is where I should, the boundaries, where
you fit in.
Correct, where I fit in. And then now what is my specific instance within that? That is a little bit more difficult for us to be able to say, because everybody is an individual and everybody has different levels and degrees of talents and qualities and so on. But what I believe already would it be if I already know what my class is, because it's already predetermined a bunch of stuff that can happen within each of the classes. And then now my specific instance within that class will be the thing that I can feel happy doing, meaning I don't mind if I have to put an extra hour or 2 in the particular day and finish a particular task. I'm okay with that. I even enjoy doing it. And it's gonna generate the necessary income for me to maintain not only myself and my loved ones. And it's 3 things, right? So 1 is it comes easy to me. I feel okay doing it. Time goes by fast when I'm doing that thing. 2, it's going to generate the necessary income for me to support myself and my loved ones. And then 3, the results of my activities, even though we're not attached to it, but the results of my duty, it's going to benefit the larger number of people possible. A lot of people are going to benefit from the results of what I do. That is really where we want to stay in our specific instance. So find the general principle, find your class. Don't look at the other classes, that's not for you. Within your own class, now find for these 3 things, that thing that you can do where time goes by really quick, you don't mind doing it, it pays you, and you help others. That's your duty. Do that. And don't look for the Tesla that just drove by. Don't look for the company that is bigger than yours. Don't look for the guy who has a imperfect record in the rim that never got knocked out by nobody else. And don't worry about the Brahmana that knows how to recite 1,000 verses and you only know how to recite 100. You're good. You are doing your duty. You are in your class. You're doing your duty. You're doing the thing which is natural for you. From that, you're going to have peace, and then you can concentrate on what I believe will be at least my highlight from yesterday's classes. But I'll stop here.
I wanted to add that for the first category of those 3 can also be broken into what you're good at and what you like doing. So what you're good at, what you like doing, what you can monetize, and what will benefit your community at large. Because you could be good at something and not really like it, right? and you could like something a lot and not really be good at it. Like I love to sing, but I'm not a singer. So I shouldn't do that as my material duty.
Poor
right?
cat.
Yeah. So play the tapes, but I sing in the shower by myself. So I think that's a good distinction. You know, we can add that fourth category, like what you're good at and then what you like doing. And that will, I think, help us. Yeah, it's described as a Venn diagram, like those four categories, and wherever they all meet, that will be a possible job or career that we could find. Thank you. That was really, really complete and really helpful.
Yeah,
I
that
appreciate
was.
you going through that.
I like that aspect also of what you like doing, because sometimes maybe if people are new to this format or this these categories, then it might seem like, oh, but I want to be a warrior. I want to be a, you know, a rescuer, and but they're not. And so, yeah, adding that aspect of what you like to do, like that's part of it. And also the part about helping out your community, what benefits the community. I think that's a really interesting point too. I hadn't heard that before. So
Yeah, that's what I like to do, right? It's tricky because that is what a lot of these university graduates falls into that trap. Oh, but I don't know if my heart is into that. I don't know if I like doing it. I don't know if, well, but I'll try it out. And if I don't like it, I do something else. And a lot of years pass and a lot of time and effort and money is gone, you know? So it's a dangerous thing. And that's why, like, understand, like if you are past, like if starting at a teenager, right? Like at around 16, 17, maybe 18, you should be able to sit with yourself. Like do that, you know? Like, I don't know, a random Wednesday night, let everybody go to sleep, sit down by yourself, hopefully you're sober, and then spend about 30 minutes contemplating yourself. Like 30 minutes, 45 minutes in a sober state of mind, in a peaceful state, in a peaceful point of your life. Not that you're angry at somebody, you know, and then you do this. Let it be that you're somewhat peaceful. Late at night, let's say people are already, or early in the morning, even better. And just spend about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then add, like, who am I? Like, what is it that really inspires me? You know, like what it is that I like is not whimsical, it's the core of our nature. Like I said, it is fire being hot. There's no way for fire not to be hot. And if you're at least 18, at 18 or 19, you should be able to know what is that for you. It's inside of you. It is something that is really deep, you know, and then learn, okay, that's my category. Like stay there. Don't try to do something else. It will help. Now, Varangi and I had a discussion on what I believe to have been Tukaram's highlight of class yesterday. I certainly never heard him preach that way, and I thought was a tremendous value. And I want to share that with you guys. So far, what we've been talking about is what is our duty from the point of view of I'm a newcomer, right? That's our intention here, to unpack Bhagavad Gita to newcomers, right? Now, let's say if we have somebody listening that has been coming to our temples and been in Krishna consciousness for quite some time, then I think what we realized yesterday is of tremendous value, which is what Tukaram said, that at what point does my duty stop completely being something exterior, being something that has to do with the material world, and then it becomes something internal, something that is related directly to Krishna. In other words, my duty is to love and serve Krishna, to know, to love, and to serve Krishna. Like at what point do we start looking at our duty as being that? And everything else that is in the material world becomes our material occupation. We are going to do it. There is no way around it. Arjuna is being told, don't leave the battlefield, go and fight. There's no way around not doing your duty. We are going to do our duty. We are going to go to our jobs. We're going to preach if we're Brahmanas. We're going to fight if we're Kshatriyas. We're going to do business if we are vaishyas, and we're going to provide great service to others. If we are Sudra, we're going to do all that. But all of it will be secondary, right? Me, the eternal soul, I am a servant of Krishna. I'm a lover of Krishna. And I'm going to chant my rounds. I'm going to associate with my like-minded devotees. I'm going to read the spiritual books that enhances my spiritual knowledge. And that is who I am. That is my duty. That is that one thing that I'm not going to let go of, that I'm going to do under whatever circumstances. Whether I am getting the desired results or not, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to chant. I'm still going to follow my vows. I'm going to honor my vows that I took before my spiritual master. And that will be my duty. And everything else is just secondary. It's my material occupation. I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to collect my money. I'm going to support the people that I love. But it truly remains there. It is secondary. And my main duty is, and again, let's say that we accept Bhagavad Gita and what Bhagavad Gita is saying. If we accept what Bhagavad Gita is saying, we are not this body, we are eternal spiritual souls, and we are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna says that directly in the Bhagavad Gita. The spirit soul, the tiny unit of consciousness, which is what the spirit soul is, it is a part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna says they are mine, they belong to me. And then if that is the case, then my eternal duty as a part of the whole is to serve the whole. So it's not a fabricated instruction. I don't think what Tukaram taught us yesterday, there's a philosophical ground upon which this idea can exist and be original and bona fide, philosophically speaking. Again, the idea that, let's say, God is a huge fire and there's a little spark of fire that comes out of that. That is us. The little spark of fire that came out of the big fire, that is that tiny spirit soul. If we go back to the whole, then and only then we are ignited again. Aside from the big fire, the tiny little spark of fire that jumped out will lose its potency in time. And it will no longer be, the fire will be put out. If we are put back into Krishna's associations, we developed all of our eternal qualities again of being hot and emanating light, in this example of fire here. So philosophically speaking, if we are eternal part of Krishna, then our eternal duty is to serve the whole, is to serve the part, the whole as a part, and to love Krishna eternally. So there's a real strong philosophical grounds upon which this idea can exist. My eternal duty is to serve Krishna. And it will be such a desirable state of consciousness because it will bring so much peace. No matter the ups and downs of our material existence, we internally will always be centered as a lover of Krishna. And I think that would be a tremendous value for society.
Yeah. Wonderful points.
Yeah, last
Go ahead,
night's lecture, Tukaram Prabhu, for those who don't know, he lectures nearly every day, and Saturday nights he's speaking at the Long Beach Temple, Long Beach, California, and he talked about this exactly, about what is true equality, because there are differences in races and mental capacities, intelligence, so many differences here and there, and at the core, like, what is true equality? And he was talking about when you strip away everything, your differences, like your gender, your race, who you are, what's left? And the answer was a lover of God, a lover of Krishna, Krishna's servant. And so when we strip away everything that we've accumulated through the different lives and lessons, and that's there, it's like, oh, well, doing your duty in this, with this in mind, is so natural then. Like,
Exactly.
It's so distilled. Yeah. I think part of his lecture leading up to this final point, which is obviously the essence of the class, I appreciated how he was leading us to this conclusion, which was, let's not focus on figuring out what our duty is in terms of material, on a material platform or material duty. Let's really focus on who we are. So not really what we should do, but who we should be. What kind of person, our quality. So in order for us to end up being, or not even being, because we are, but realizing that we are eternal servants of God, we first need to start building a lifestyle and a character of somebody that would naturally come to realize this last point. And so that's a life that looks like leading a life of integrity, of honor, respect, transparency, being an honorable part of your community, of society, living for something far greater than yourself, building a strong moral character and principles. And then at the end of your life, that you have something to give to that newer generation. What's your legacy going to be? You know? So and he talked about how so many different cultures have decided what's important for them. He talked about the Jews. It's so important for them to marry within themselves, for them to preserve their culture, you know, and we can think of so many different cultures and what they have decided as a unit that's so important to live by and live for. And so as devotees, and not only in this tradition, but just in general, as aspirants of you know, bhakti or devotion for God, what would a life of such a person look like? And that really should be our focus in trying to figure out our duty, right? What kind of person should I be? Who do I want to be that will eventually lead me to become, not to become again, to realize that I'm an eternal servant of God, and that's who I am at the core. And so he then said this, which really was just like such a nice cherry on top. He said, you know, at the end of the day, if you still want to enjoy this world, even though you want to, even though you're attached, even though you realize that, yeah, this is my goal, but this is where I'm at and I really need to enjoy, then do that without compromising your morals and your principles. So it's just the same thing that we see Krishna doing with Arjuna. He gives Arjuna a higher principle. Arjuna's not able to get it or live by that. Then he gives Arjuna something to start with that will eventually lead him to that higher purpose. So the same thing Tukram was saying, you know, if we can't live a life of purity, commitment, honor, integrity, honesty, transparency, then at least still be attached to enjoying this world, you know, in the most basic of ways, but at least understand what your spiritual duties are, what your spiritual, and if you don't have any duties right now because you're just starting out your spiritual practice, at least have a goal. Like, what would you like your spiritual practice to be and look like eventually? So having that in mind, you still dabble in this world and do whatever you need to do because that's where we're at, but you always hold this very close and dear to your heart and you won't let it go no matter what. Like, there's nothing that's not on the table for negotiation. This is not going anywhere. And as many times as you fail defending this, doing your duty as a spiritual being, you're still never going to give it up. So by having that strong foundation, even if it's just an aspiration, you are still being protected from degradation and falling too far away from that ideal. And I thought that was such a powerful point, because first of all, I saw how hand in hand it went with the way that Krishna is teaching Arjuna, and this is the way that our teacher is teaching us, but how relevant that is, because a lot of us are just not ready to live that life, but we want to. And so it really includes everybody, whether you're up here or you're down here, as long as you have that knowledge of what truth is, even if you're not really good at following it, or even if you don't know how to follow it. If you hold that as your goal and as your, yeah, like that's who I want to be, then Krishna will surely help you find a community by which you can attain that, but also you will start making different choices because you won't let this go, and you don't want to degrade yourself to the point where you're going to sell your soul, like he said, for something, for broken glass. That's something that our tradition often mentions. Bhakti is like a diamond. And so this material world and the pleasures that are so ephemeral and temporary, they're compared to broken glass. And a lot of us get so confused by illusion that we go after broken glass, not realizing that we have this diamond. It's there. All of us have it. We just have to get some training in how to notice it. And so I know this ties back to Tadeo's initial comment about realizing it, realizing what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you are, what it is that your nature is. And you won't be able to really get in sync with that unless you have some knowledge about it, right? And so it was such an amazing class. And it's funny because I feel like that after every class, it's like, oh my gosh, this was the best class ever. And it's just, Kim and I were speaking and we were saying, we went through one verse, but it's like, even though we're going through just one verse, he's unpacking it in such a way that it just never gets old. It never feels, at least for me, it's like, it never feels like, oh, I've heard that before. Like, okay, I'm wasting my time. It's like, oh my gosh, I've never heard this verse taught in this way. Of course. And then the more I think about it, the more I can see relationships or like connections with other verses, or even just understanding who Krishna is and who Arjuna is and how much I need to hear this. And so it just becomes this beautiful meditation that it slowly brings us closer and closer to that essence, to our essence as spiritual beings. And really at the end of the day, it's like, what else is more important than this? Mm-hmm. Besides our family, and you're a businessman and a highly philosophical and spiritual person, Soza, and so are you, Kim. You're so intelligent and you're so good at managing and making things happen, and so intelligent and talented in technology, but also breaking down concepts for people to understand them in an easy way. But even though that's all great, still part of your material life, you're focused and you're anchored on spirituality, and that's really what makes you a better whatever it is that you're doing in your material life, right? And so at the end of the day, I think that's the conclusion of this class, right? Yep. It's like, we can't be that good at anything we do externally unless we are anchored in what we truly are as spiritual beings. Once we're anchored, then anything else that comes our way materially, we're going to be good at that. And even if we're not that good, it's like, it doesn't really matter. We're not that attached to that result because we're doing the most important thing, which is that connecting to that source and nurturing that relationship. I'll stop.
That's a great point. If we are anchored inside, if we have identified and realized our spiritual nature from within, anything we do externally will be good. That's a great point. So I guess my closing remarks for today is that we are here discussing this highly philosophical and ethical points of who I am. I'm an eternal part of Krishna, so that's the philosophy part. Then we're discussing honor and commitment, so that's more like material ethics, let's say. And we can look at all of these concepts and put them in the bucket of, we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita, we're talking about spiritual philosophy, material ethics, etc. And it can be all one thing in one bucket that we are all discussing, we are studying, we are commenting and sharing and so on. There is another bucket, which is the idea that God is a person, which to me, the idea never gets old, right? After all his magnanimous qualities and the being that he is, like if you just wrap your mind around, he created the entire universe, right? Like it's an amazing amount of power and love, and there's such a big picture there, right? Nevertheless, he's a person, A person like me and you with feelings and thoughts and desires, etc. He's a person. It's like an idea that never gets old to me. Now, why am I bringing this up? I bring this up because if we think of ourselves as persons, think about your spouse, think about your friends, your colleagues at work, you would expect them to treat your relationship with honor. You would expect that if a friend of yours says, hey, I'm going to meet you at X and Y Z place at Y time, you would expect that the person is there. And if you marry somebody and you say, for the rest of my life, I'll honor our vows and I will love you in sickness and in happiness, you would expect that the person is actually going to follow through and that they're going to be there and they're going to honor their vows. You're going to expect that for your own personal relationships. So everything that we're discussing here is just to eliminate all the vices we have accumulated throughout innumerable lifetimes and become again a pure person that can engage in a pure, honest, and love relationship with the Supreme Person. So I think if we look at personality, that God is a person, that relationship with God, that relationship with that Supreme Person will naturally be one of honor, will naturally be one of respect and love and care and service for each other. It will be natural. So all these very esoteric topics that we're talking about here really serves to wash our brains and our consciousness to become pure and clear again, so that we can again attain our relationship with the Supreme Person. That relationship would never be any other ways. You can't lack character when you are engaging in a relationship with the Supreme Person. If you have an appointment with, let's say, Barack Obama,
Thank you.
the President of the United States, if you have an appointment with Barack Obama at whatever place, at whatever time, just because of who he is, you're going to be there and you're going to be there on time. You're not going to show up drunk. You're going to be dressed properly. You're going to be prepared for the meeting. You're going to be there on time and you're going to honor that encounter. Now we're talking about the Supreme Person. God is a person. So all of these qualities of commitments, what this verse is teaching us to learn how to develop our commitments, our integrity, our morals, is preparing us to again engage in our pure and loving relationship with the Supreme Person.
Beautiful.
Such a nice way to put that, yeah. Especially using the analogy of Barack Obama. Like, yeah, how do you prepare for that first date where you're really excited and you care what they think and or you love them and yeah.
Yeah, that too, like a date, right? You meet somebody that you are romantically attracted to, let's say, and like literally just met the person, right? And you're gonna go out on your first date. Like, remember, like that's exciting, right? That's also the excitement components. You want to be excited to show up. When you show up, you're going to be the best version of yourself. You're going to be on time. You're going to dress nicely. You're going to think about a bunch of cool things to say, you know, and you're going to be excited about it. Like God is a person, you know, he's a person like that. So we're developing all these qualities to engage in that eternal relationship with the Supreme Person.
And the true magic really happens when we're able to reenact and really keep that mood, even when it's not the first time anymore, right? But because it's on spiritual terms, it's just always getting better and better, and God is always fresh, and your connection with him is just growing infinitely. But, you know, to put it into material terms, it's like, hopefully that first date evolved into a marriage, and now, you know, Soza and I are married. You know, there's commitment, and it might not be the same, like, oh, you know, it's the first time I meet this person and we're going to go out on a date, but now it's getting deeper and deeper because you're getting to know each other with the same respect and the same commitment. And now, you know, neither one of us is walking away no matter what. So those feelings may change form, but they're also getting deeper if they're actually founded on something spiritual. If they're not, then both people just get old, right?
Absolutely.
And everything gets boring. And it's like, who's the next person? Or let me find a younger, richer, better looking partner. So it's the same thing with God. I thought that was such a an amazing point. God is a person. And as such, we need to put in some work to water that relationship daily. Otherwise, it'll get old for us because we haven't developed that transcendental vision. But he's ever fresh. And that love can grow forever, even in ways that our marriages can't, right? Because
Absolutely.
he's the supreme person. He can
Absolutely.
actually fulfill us 100%. So that
Yeah.
was a nice point.
And I think you guys are a really good example where you're very inspirational to me. And I look forward to 10 years from now studying the Gita, hopefully with you guys still, and being like, oh, my mind was blown by last night's class with Tukaram. Like it just proves that there's so much depth in these texts and lessons.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are at the end of our episode, and I encourage anyone who's listening or watching to subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns or doubts, please engage with us. You can email us, you can comment, you can DM us. So thank you very much to both of you, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.